Self-harm is by no means a new phenomenon. However, recent research does suggest that it is on the rise. Self-harm, what is it? Well, basically it is any act that is done on purpose to cause yourself harm in order to release emotional, psychological distress. There are different forms of self-harm. There is both direct forms of self-harm and indirect forms. So direct, this is the stuff that people traditionally think of. They think about cutting different parts of their body, right? We think about burning, but there are also things that you maybe wouldn't think about. Pulling your hair out one by one is quite common. They're picking your skin, not letting scabs heal, that sort of thing. Direct self-harm. And then there is indirect self-harm. Indirect self-harm is a whole different beast, and it's actually can be quite hard to spot. Indirect is any time not where you are causing yourself physical harm, but you are allowing the chance for physical harm to happen to you. This is the kid who is surfing on top of the car as it's driving 50 kilometers an hour down the road. This is the kid who's never been snowboarding before, but on the youth trip, they go off the biggest jump in the park without a helmet. They're not necessarily directly harming themselves, but they're giving themselves the chance to be hurt with the purpose of relieving emotional pain and stress. So this was hard to spot because the kid might just be a goof who's trying to get attention, or he may be seeking release from his emotional pain. So why do people self-harm? The simple answer is because it works. But it only works temporarily. And after doing it, and you do it more and more, and it becomes a cycle and it becomes an addiction that can be very difficult to get out of. So let's talk about the cycle itself. Where we begin is with someone who is in a place of emotional stress already. They are undergoing some emotional strain, and they are primed and they are ready for the next step, which is to be triggered. Now, a trigger is something that happens to cause more emotional stress. And again, we can have direct and indirect triggers. A direct trigger would be a bully, somebody coming up to them and telling them that they're weak or that they're ugly or something, and that's obviously going to cause emotional stress. There's also indirect triggers that can happen. Now, these things are more subtle. It could be you're in the mall with a kid and a song is playing in the background. And that song was the song that was playing when their boyfriend broke up with them last month. And just hearing it subconsciously brings up this huge wave of emotion inside of them. And that brings them to the next stage. Panic. The emotions come like waves for all of us. They come and they go. They increase in intensity and then they subside. But a person who has been triggered like this, the emotion feels like a tsunami. It's like a wall of water is coming at them. The emotions are so huge and so big, they don't see an end to it. They don't know how it could possibly stop. And so they begin to panic. They begin to drown in their emotions. And so then they have the urge. It's the urge to act, the urge to self-harm. And that moves them to the next stage in the cycle, which is the act itself. They cut, they burn, they do whatever it is, and they experience pain. After the act, this is why it works, this is why it continues, because then, after causing yourself pain, our bodies are amazing. And they react by giving us adrenaline and endorphins. They bring up the fight or flight reaction, and all those happy hormones, all those happy chemicals begin to flood our bodies and make us feel really good. Make us feel like superheroes, like we can fight the grizzly bear or whatever is attacking us at that moment. So we get this emotional high that happens. Now that high, like any drug, is addictive. But also like any drug, it wears off. And as it wears off, the person begins to spiral back to that place where they're down at an emotionally low state. Except this time, it's worse. Because this time, not only are they in that low emotional state, but now they have the added guilt and the added shame of what they've just done to themselves piled on top of it. And so around and around and around they go. So is there hope? Yes, absolutely I have seen many young people be set free from this cycle, from this addiction, simply by the good news that Jesus came and he bled so that we didn't have to. Now, us, as people who care about these young people who are hurting themselves, what's our role? Well, we have a couple places where we can intersect into this cycle and show them a different way. One is in the urge stage, that when they've got that desire to act. It's a coping skill, and we need to show them a better coping skill. So I often provide my kids with a list. We'll write it together in some way that makes sense to them, but like a hard copy list that they can keep with them wherever they go of alternatives to self-harm. Ride a bike, call a friend, call me, go grab a cup of tea, color in your adult coloring book, whatever it is, give some alternatives, anything other than self-harm itself. And if you can slowly get in the habit of replacing the negative coping skill with the positive ones, the urge will subside more and more and more. Of course, this should come along with counseling, therapy, talking, all that other stuff to deal with the underlying root issues that the kid is dealing with. So that is the cycle of self-harm that many of our kids are struggling with. And that's the role that you can have in helping them get out of it.